Hi, I'm Beth McDonough, a second-year PhD student at the University of Bologna and CMCC, the Euro-Mediterranean Centre on Climate Change, based in Bologna, Italy. My recent work involves investigating the effects of tides on vertical motion and mixing in the Mediterranean Sea using numerical simulations. This work will form a part of my thesis, which is provisionally entitled The Study of Vertical Motion and Mixing in the Mediterranean Sea using a baroclinic tidal model. I would like to thank my collaborators on this work so far, Emanuele Clementi, Nadia Penadi, Anna Chiara Goglio, and Paolo Cessi. First, I would like to introduce some of the literature that is most relevant to this work, beginning with tides in the Mediterranean region and their links to dynamics. It was found by Naranjo in their investigation of the Western Mediterranean that tides increase salinity and decrease the temperature of the flow into the Mediterranean from the Atlantic Ocean, and also by Palmer, that tides have an effect on the circulation in straits and shallow parts of the Mediterranean and have non-linear effects elsewhere in the basin. Internal tides in the Mediterranean have also been a topic of discussion, and one example of evidence for them is in the paper by Mihankovic in the Adriatic Sea. In other parts of the global ocean, the relationship between tides and vertical motion has been discussed in more depth. In the Labrador Sea, a crucial region for the overturning circulation in the Atlantic Ocean, Lee and their collaborators found that density at the surface was enhanced by tides, which could aid overturning in the region. Adding tides to the model used by Muller improved the representation of deep water formation and mixed layer depth in the same region. The importance of correctly modelling internal tides has also been highlighted in a study on the Indonesian seas. The impacts of tides reach far beyond the typical diurnal and semi-diurnal frequencies that are associated with tidal components in the Mediterranean Sea, as waves at different timescales interact with one another. Van Huren found that internal waves at both inertial and high frequencies exist in the northwestern Mediterranean, and inertial waves are known to govern mixing in this region. Papers by Lob in the Azores region and Stanev in the northeastern Atlantic Ocean found that tides impact the mesoscale, and Lob's paper particularly highlighted the importance of parameterizing this correctly in ocean models. Studying this literature led to the formation of a question which my work investigates, which is how do tides affect vertical motion and dynamics in the Mediterranean Sea? I used a Mediterranean Sea configuration of NEMO to investigate this. I'd like to begin with a brief overview of the Mediterranean region for those who are not already familiar. On this map, I've added the amplitude of the M2 tidal component, which is the principal component in the Mediterranean. As you can see, there are three regions that have high tidal amplitude within the Mediterranean Sea: the Gibraltar Strait, the Northern Adriatic Sea, and the Gulf of Gabes. In addition, there are several areas which have been identified by Penadi which have important vertical dynamics, including dense water formation in the open ocean. These are the Gulf of Lion in the northwestern Mediterranean, the southern Adriatic Sea, and further east the Cretan Sea and Rhodes Gyre. Now I would like to briefly introduce the model that I've used. On the left-hand side here, I've summarised the main differences between the two experiments that we ran. Of course, the most important difference for this work is the addition of the 8 tidal components to the model with tides. The NEMO version used was NEMO 3.6, which is operational and available via the Copernicus Marine Service. The model was run from 2015 to 2021, with 2015 and 16 removed from the analysis as spin-up years. I'll present several parts of the analysis that I've done in the next few slides, including spectra of the sea surface height and of the kinetic energy, and some regional results of mixed layer depth and vertical velocity. Here we have an energy density spectrum of sea surface height in the Mediterranean Sea, calculated from basin averaged hourly data from 2017 to 2021, with the tidal model in red and the model without tides in blue. Firstly, we can of course see the diurnal and semi-diurnal tidal components at 24 and 12 hours respectively, and in the zoomed-in boxes, it's clear to see the peaks of each of these individual tidal components. However, it's also clear from the plot that tides have effects well outside of these 8 frequencies. Looking at low frequencies, those above around 2 days, we can see that tides are modulating the mesoscale. the tidal model has reduced energy at low frequencies. In addition, semidiurnal tides introduce a broad peak around the 12-hour region, rather than just at the specific tidal periods. Finally, we also note that tides increase the energy density at high frequencies. The sea surface height that we just looked at can be seen as a representation of potential energy in the ocean, so we can also look at kinetic energy via the horizontal currents. On the left, I show a Hofmüller plot of time against depth for zonal east-western currents for just 1 month of our data, May 2019. Note that the depths are on a logarithmic scale for this figure. Although the surface is affected by tides, the structural changes due to tides really start to occur below around 150 or 200 meters. What we see here is the addition of internal tides throughout the deeper levels of the basin. On the right-hand side is a spectrum of the total kinetic energy divided into 3 depths: the surface in blue, the shelf regions above 200 meters in purple, and the deeper regions below 200 meters in green. We demonstrate that kinetic energy on the surface isn't so strongly affected by tides, and tides actually seem to have their biggest impact on kinetic energy in the deeper regions. This is particularly notable at higher frequencies, where kinetic energy is greatly enhanced by tides, but the mesoscale kinetic energy is reduced in the tidal model as well, so there are impacts across a wide range of frequencies. The final result I'd like to show in this presentation is a summary of some of the results in the key regions in the Mediterranean that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. The large map in the centre shows the winter mixed layer depth change when tides are introduced in the model, and it's clear that tides increase winter mixed layer depth through most of the Mediterranean Sea, with the Gibraltar Strait as a notable exception. On average in the basin, this increase between January and March is 5.7%. The biggest increase occurs in the northwestern Mediterranean, where a seasonal increase in dam welling and upwelling is also found. This can be seen in the time series in the box on the left. This change in vertical velocity and mixed layer depth in this region is particularly interesting due to the region being key to dense water formation and overturning circulation in the Mediterranean Sea. However, big changes like this are not seen in the entire basin. The North Adriatic and Gulf of Gabes were identified earlier as regions where tides are particularly important, but the vertical dynamics of these areas are not particularly affected by tides, possibly due to them being shallower shelf regions. Areas further east in the basin demonstrate that these changes due to tides are non-linear. In the South Adriatic, we see a change in the structure of the gyre when tides are added, which is demonstrated by the mixed layer depth increasing and decreasing in concentric circles in different parts of this region. In the Cretan Sea, unlike the Gulf of Lion, downwelling in the first 1,000 meters is decreased when tides are added, although mixed layer depth is still increased. This profile of vertical velocity can be seen in the plot in the box on the bottom right-hand corner. To summarize the results that I've shown today, here are 3 key takeaways from my presentation. Firstly, tides have impacts on a wide variety of timescales and appear to interact with both the mesoscale and high frequencies. Secondly, the impact of tides is felt away from the surface in the Mediterranean, and there is evidence in deep level currents that internal tides are present in the basin. Finally, I would like to highlight that the effects of tides on vertical mixing and motion in the Mediterranean are non-linear, and several key regions of the basin are affected differently from one another. Thank you very much for listening, and here are the references for the literature that I have mentioned today.